Hello everybody, welcome back to Talkin Tricks, and today we're actually doing a reaction video, and specifically we're reacting to a panel of legends at Vertigo 6. Looked like it was a lot of fun, and I'm very excited to see this video. There's a lot of really notable names out here, like Velu.
Yes, and some interesting video topics concerning questions they were asked. So I am curious to hear what was said.
Yeah. So we'll probably be taking a little bit more of a backseat approach for this one, kind of letting it talk and reacting as appropriate. So,
Real quick, if you can use
all right.
that
So we
microphone
skipped some
mainly,
of these introductions, but
so you pass that one
I
around.
think now we're getting to
Yeah,
some of the questions.
we encourage you to
So
go
let's
and listen
just
to
get
them,
started
by
with
the
the
way. We're
first
just
question.
here to react to like the questions and stuff that people ask. We know who these people are. There's really not a whole lot that we can say about their introductions, but if you don't know them, look into them and look up some of their footage.
Yeah, they're all
See what
pretty
they're
cool.
doing.
So,
Question, if you have something to say or want to speak on it, we'll pass the mic to you. Question one is just, what are your thoughts on the skill level in tricking from when you first started versus now?
wait, I actually do want to hear your guys's, because you guys are legends too, in my mind, and I want to know what you guys think about tricking skill levels. I think this is. I will say this is a little bit of a
I
basic question. I think we all ponder this, and it's fun to ponder. But
I agree. Well, it's because we're in a sport that hasn't yet gotten to the point where a lot of sports in the Olympics are,
mhm,
where the difference between people at the very, very top levels is like absolute minute, you
mhm,
know, parameters. Because at those point, they've all basically optimized to about as much as they can, and now it's a matter of genetics and a whole
mhm,
bunch of factors that are you know, kind of random in some ways.
mhm,
But we still haven't gotten that. So there's like still a massive gap in what the ceiling is as far as what you can physically expect someone to do.
mhm,
And so yeah, no, that's still changing. It changed a lot for these folks, but it even did change a lot from us. Like I know when I came in, triple cork had really only just barely been landed. There
mhm.
was like a couple of people there. You could literally, when I started tricking, you could count the number of people who had landed triple cork on your hand. That,
Yeah.
that is now a completely impossible task. You would need a lot of
Oh,
fingers to pull that off. Uh,
Yes, a lot of hands.
yeah. I mean I agree with you, Bryce, especially with the point about I guess the change in skill level that they experience versus like our generation of trickers. I actually think we experienced maybe even more. I feel like really the exponential growth happened like in that post Guthrie era. Like once it wasn't quite clear if he was the top or not. You know, Ilya started coming in. We started to have Shosei, and then I think stuff exploded to the point where it's like, at least for me personally, it was very hard to keep up. I was like, oh yeah, some other person did dub times 5. Okay, yeah,
yeah,
that
there
sounds
was
about right.
some there was an entire period where I had tricking whiplash where
Yeah.
there was so much stuff coming out that I had overstimulation. I had
Hmm.
sensory overload.
Right. And Jason, do you have any thoughts?
Yeah, I think it feels like it all happened in such a short amount of time, but if like you go back, it's like there's actually like this massive time gap between them.
Mm-hmm.
Like significant events too sometimes, and it's like, am I just getting old? And like I'm
Time
like
is just
everything is just
passing
like
that quick. Yeah.
right, and everything's just happening all at once. Cause like
Yeah.
I'm pretty sure like Snatch Cannon is like 10 years old now, right?
Close.
So
Yeah. Or actually,
we're
it might be 10 years old. You're right.
and it's like that's crazy to think about.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, I'm not even
Oh
gonna
man.
just comment on that.
Yeah.
I think that the skill growth that like we've seen in like our short time, Frank, has
Mm-hmm.
been like, exponential for
Mm-hmm.
sure. Like just the sheer difficulty and complexity of combos is like increased,
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
both in terms of like sheer raw difficulty, but also in like creative complexity as well.
Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
yeah.
The tricks that people are doing and the way they're putting them together.
Yeah.
That's become way more complex.
All right. Let's see what Ishpain has to say. He's been here a lot longer than any of us, so he's seen a lot of stuff. So.
Dude, I came from an era where it was like 540, aerials, cork, and we used to joke about I can't curse, the stuff that you guys do now. We used to joke about it, these quad corks, triple corks, swing through triple cork. Like, it's insane. The skill level has Yeah, it's very impressive. It's crazy.
I like what he said about joking about tricks, because me and the Muggle Slayers, we've all joked about tricks like Hyper Triple 12. I don't even know if that. I think that has been done now. Hyper. I don't know. It was just like a dumb.
I think
trick,
only by swing. I don't think anyone's done like a standing
like
cheat
cheat.
triple 12
Hyper Triple 12. Basically H bomb, but with another kick
with an extra swipe. Yeah.
and
They
twist.
should call it the Tsar bomb.
Tsar bomb. Like, that's pretty sick. I like that actually. All right.
Okay, so for example, I have like a really good example of Toronto Gathering in 2005 where we were coming up with creative combos. And I remember one person in that conversation named Matt Frederico was like, could you imagine someone doing a double beat twist swing through double cork? And we're like, no, that's impossible. And then it was like done like within a year. So now, you know, fast forward to today, you guys are like swinging triples and stuff like that. Like, come on. Skill level now is much higher than we ever would have imagined back in the day. Like, it's just crazy. Doing good, crazy things these days.
This is one of the reasons why, just to stop for a minute, this is one of the reasons why I don't ever want to discount any of the tricks that could theoretically be done. Whenever we're like coming up with our naming scheme for tricking, occasionally we run into like okay, yeah, but this combination of way to take off and flip that you need to do and direction you need to rotate, it's really inconvenient. It's really hard to do, you know. So, you know, there's this temptation to say that, oh, so people won't do it.
Right.
So I don't need to worry about it. But if there's one thing that tricking has proven to me is that just because something is really, really difficult does not make that an obstacle to a human tricker doing it. It will at some point be done if it's physically possible.
I would say, if anything, I've learned almost the opposite, in the sense that, not of what you said, but of like the original thing that you were arguing against, in the sense that, like, if you put an idea out there, someone's gonna work towards it. Like, you know what I mean? It's like, it's not someone puts out an idea and it's like, that's silly. There's someone who's like, it gets planted in their mind. They're like, how can I work towards this? And then they get it. So,
Well, I think tricking has always been about, like, you know, achieving these like crazy goals, right? Like triple cork in and of itself was, you know, one of those tricks where it was like highly sought after, and then it was finally done, and even still long after that, like it maintained that appeal.
Every young tricker is secretly Alexander the Great, conquering
Yeah.
city after city, and the only time they weep is when they run out of cities to conquer, when they run out of world to conquer.
love that. Is
And,
that
like,
a quote?
No, well, that is the story. That is the legend of Alexander the Great. Is
He's a little
he wept
crybaby.
when he ran out of world to conquer.
Nice.
But yeah, essentially though, like, you know, we set these crazy goals, but that's like, for tricking to evolve, like we almost have to like pursue these crazy goals. So
Absolutely.
John McClay, rest in peace. He made an animation of like ridiculous tricks that we thought were so impossible.
Just use that mic. Yeah.
Hello, yeah.
We've been
That were
there
so
with technical
impossible,
difficulties
but if you look
before.
at it now,
Oh, yeah.
a lot of those tricks are happening. So like that's what tricking looks like now. It's insane.
having dissected some of that, I'm gonna disagree. Like,
Well,
sorry.
Some of it is like there's a good portion of it that is theoretically possible. There are a lot of them where it's like, no, that's, I mean,
Plug for our video on John McClay. Go watch it, because we rate the plausibility of the combos and even say if it's been done before. And I think there were maybe a handful
quite a few.
of them. Like, I
Yeah,
think
quite a
there's,
few
like,
that had been done before, or pieces of them had been
Yes.
done. And it's like, yeah, is it as far outside of the realm of possibility as when the video was made? Definitely not.
No,
It's
yeah.
still a sampler that I would struggle. I don't think anyone's gonna 100% that one anytime soon. So-
I don't think anyone's gonna 100% it in my lifetime for sure. But we'll see. Maybe I get proven wrong. That last combo at the end is kind of insane.
Yes.
This is my content mic, sorry. Yeah, I want to piggyback off what Ishpain was saying because I was joking about scoot double back and full ins and stuff. That was one of my favorite jokes, and now I can't make it anymore. So, thanks, guys. Yeah, like I think there were more.
Sorry, I have to mention that because like growing up in that era, like in 2013, if you said scoot double back to me, I'd be like, that is
Yeah.
the funniest thing I've ever heard.
People just hadn't done double flips yet from a whole lot of tricking setups. Like the closest thing you had to non-standard double flip setups was Alex Hunter doing double back out of touchdown rise and out of Gumby. And that was really crazy, and basically no one else touched stuff like that for a while.
Yeah.
Quad corkers now. Correct me if I'm wrong, maybe Jaime, you know, but I think there's more quad corkers now than there were double corkers when I started. Like, I actually think there was. Like in 2005, how many people were doing double cork? Like 5 people maybe at most? So yeah, that's the skill level now.
Even from like the learning curve, like if you just start tricking today, you're gonna be so much better than like if this was like 2006 or something. It took like when I said I technically started tricking in 2005.
Thank you, Gabby, for defending our honor. That's actually why we're bad. It's not because we're bad skill level wise. We were just born in a different time. So thank you, Gabby.
Exactly. We needed to be born later, and then we wouldn't be able to have this excuse. Except then we could always just ask to be born later. So this is a perpetual excuse.
No, it's precisely right. It's like to be one of the best trickers, you have to be like a combination of impossible variables, and it's like born at the latest time possible while also young enough to comprehend everything, while also having like enough body knowledge or like air awareness and et cetera developed for tricking that you can only develop having tricked for a certain amount of time anyway. So you have to like start tricking with like 3 years of tricking knowledge already built in, and then you're good to go.
I think I'd be a force to be reckoned with if I could just go back to when I was like even just like 10 years old, knowing what I know now, I could be a killer. Like I don't know. That's my thoughts. But
yeah, you also have to be born like as late as possible, or be introduced to tricking as like late as possible, while also being as young as possible.
Right. Yeah.
So,
but also the barrier back then to be good, I would say more people were capable of reaching that threshold. So the earlier you're born, the more likely you are to be a notable tricker, if that makes any sense. I don't know.
How do you mean?
Like the earlier you're born, like during our era, like you didn't like you had to do some crazy shit that was still like ahead of the times, but the skill level cap was not nearly to the point where it's like
exactly. It's the same kind of business actually with math and physics. Like, yeah, everybody early on in math and physics that contributed was a genius and all that, but there was also a lot of low-hanging fruit. So a whole lot of people who weren't necessarily geniuses could make a lot of contributions to very basic, simple ideas. And the same was true of early tricking. Because what it took to be up at the peak wasn't those absolutely minute differences that you can really only achieve if you're genetic perfection. Lots of people ended up doing it without necessarily having to devote their entire lives to it, to work like an Olympic athlete to pull it off. So, yeah, it would have been a lot easier. Nowadays, though, they just have more people to compete with.
But I didn't really get involved like with people until like 2007, is because I feel like those formative years don't count like as a tricker. It was just more like when you first started, the learning curve was just so different that it took a long time to be comfortable doing certain tricks, and then you get involved with the community, and then it's like boom, you boost. But nowadays it's like you come to a gathering like Vertigo's your first gathering, and then you start landing all this. I don't know. It's just crazy because it's the standards just much higher, so everything seems more attainable. So it's just you progress to that much quicker versus back in the day when all of this was just an idea. You know what I'm saying? Wow.
Especially access to all the tutorials, Kojo.
I think that is actually something that's changed a whole lot. When I was growing up in tricking, yeah, there were tutorials on a lot of tricks and videos of a lot of tricks, but not all of them were all that great.
Yeah.
Nowadays, you have so many options to choose from of
You have
like
Kojo dissecting corks for like an hour if you
yeah,
want.
and you so many options of like people who've been there, who've spent a lot of time thinking about it, who and like if you don't like that person's technique, there's somebody else's technique who you do like who has made a video on it. It's great. It's way better.
Yeah.
I also want to go back to something that I believe Gappy was saying was like everything is so much more attainable now that or feels more obtainable because it's already been done. You know, like there's this like impossibility factor that's just suddenly removed and you don't even have to worry about it anymore, like as it's already been obtained. And
Human
like,
psychology plays so big of a role in your progression in tricking, or actually tricking progression as a whole, to be honest. So, like,
I think it's
you
more
see
than
floodgates open all the time whenever the first person lands a trick. Oh,
yeah.
suddenly you have more people.
yeah, suddenly,
and I think
yeah,
it's
suddenly
more than
there's like
psychology.
more just
I think
showing up.
psychology definitely plays a role in it, but I think also it's like there's like a technique innovation that's broken when ever that first move occurs. Like someone had to do a sequence of movements that had never been done before, and nobody knew how to do before they did it.
Yeah.
Now future people can study that footage, or ask them like, all right, how did you like? What were you thinking when you did this? Well, it's just a benefit in approaching that trick that that first person could never have had.
Yes, I agree. I think I don't know how I'd like to go back in time to see what pre 20 or 2008 TDRs were like, and see I guess the point where TDRs became like the mainstream kind of setup, because I have a feeling that it was not viewed as the main setup at first, and then when people realized how powerful it was, it just kind of took hold. And that's just a theory. I don't actually know if that's how it happened, but it'd be
I'm
interesting.
actually not too aware of the history of TDRs and tricking outside of their use by Alex Hunter.
Oh,
To be
also
honest,
they're called HP Rise, hand plant rise, which is awful. It's so cursed. Don't ever do that. Like one of Guthrie's first clips of I think him doing a double cork is like HP Rise double cork.
God,
it's awesome.
Is there anybody in the audience that has been tricking for, I want to say 3 years or less, that would like to share? Oh, nice. Yeah, keep your hands up. Would any of you like to share your experience with like learning tricking now? Yeah, I can pass the mic back.
I'm interested to see this newbie point of view actually.
So I discovered tricking roughly like 2018-ish through Plan Zero. I had no flipping experience. I couldn't do anything at all. I think I looked up like a GMS tutorial. I was like, nah, this is gonna be so easy. I could not even do anything at all. I was like, this is so hard. I'm never gonna be able to do this. And so I stopped for a long time, and then at the end of 2021 is when I first started actually like really tricking. I met some of the people that I trick with all the time, and through community, I think it was a lot easier to like actually get good because I was going alongside with like a lot of my friends and stuff, and they were way better than me. But I think it's a lot easier to get good now because there's so many people that are just so amazing at tricking, and you can watch them. There's so many different people you can pull inspiration from. That's something that Jordan was talking about. And I think that, shout out to Kojo once again. I think Kojo's Trick Lab really did a number for my tricking where I just was watching tutorials every single day. I was stretching every day. I was super passionate about it. And so after, roughly 2 years, like I can double cork now and I can do all sorts of stuff like that, and I have so much fun with the sport. And I think that starting is just so much easier.
Everybody underestimates the power that access to information plays in your ability to achieve any goal.
Oh yeah.
It's why it's so confusing why it's very confusing when people aren't interested in understanding the thing that they're doing on a more deeper level, because it's almost like saying, well, I'm not actually interested in succeeding at this. I just kind of want to do it. Okay. Suppose you can do that.
Yeah. I think people meme online about like how how we imagine the future would be for humanity with the internet, and it's like how it actually is, and it shows like a bunch of memes or whatever. But I unironically think that the internet has done wonders for human intelligence and for human misinformation as well, to be fair. But
And it's unfortunately not done so many wonders for human attention span. But yeah, they're
yeah.
like your access to information. For some people, the people who properly take advantage of the fact that it does give you the ability to now research a huge number of topics that would otherwise have been like, I mean, your previous recourse to it would have been walking around a library for hours, attempting to look for different things, to get just small excerpts to connect all of your bits of research together, and maybe the book wouldn't be there and you'd have to wait for the book to get sent in from a different city. And it's like,
I don't know how people learn stuff back then. It's crazy when I think about it, especially like the time intensity of it. Like I'm realizing as I get older now how valuable my time is, and anytime I'm like wasting an hour, I'm just like, damn, like that's an hour I could have been doing this.
yeah, exactly.
Like,
I'm not getting that time back. So
Yeah.
what am I doing?
Yeah.
Side tangent, what are some tutorials that you guys watched?
I remember one of my first tutorials because I really wanted to learn TDR. I think Kyle Epic Mendoza was like, you should learn this first, and it was Macaco, which I don't think anyone even fucking
I don't
does.
think you don't need to. I don't think, and honestly, I don't think you need to know how to do that in order to do a TDR. That's like not the progression that I would go for. But I've seen lots of progressions to TDR, so it's possible.
Well, you know how I don't know what it was with this era of tricking, but people were obsessed with like naming prereqs. They were like, "Oh, you need this as a prereq, you need this as a prereq," and sometimes they would be so unrelated. But I feel like it was like an effect where it's just like, "Oh wow, this guy's so smart. He sees a link between these tricks that like I don't see. That's why." I don't know. I think that's the vibe that was going on back then. Personally, it's interesting to see, but.
The sport martial arts tutorials that you download from the website, and it was like a single trick, and I don't know, it's just they were helpful and stuff, but it was like, first you do this and then you do that, now you got it, your turn. So it's like, you know,
Based and true, that's how you do tricks.
To that point, it felt like it was those tutorials at the time were more of a description of the trick. Like you lift your leg, you jump, you spin, and you kick, and that's how you do it. And now we have way more sophisticated learning tech. So kudos to you guys that are doing the work now.
When I started, I couldn't really speak English, and there was only English tutorials. So I found Tricks tutorials and Juji Mufu, and he had those tutorials where there was a picture by picture of each trick and a text for each picture. And I translated with the dictionary the text and made a word file for myself in Finnish from 540, from B-twist, and that's how I started learning. So how much time it took, you can imagine the amount of work to just figure out the tips for the 540.
What an absolute beast.
That's crazy. Yeah, no, that's absolutely crazy to think about.
I'm just thinking about the dedication though. Like this is a man who wanted to learn those tips. You know what I mean? Then
He had to decipher foreign texts.
If there's
truly.
Yeah, in that way, when you put it like that, Bryce, it sounds like he's just like obtaining eldritch knowledge from like an ancient text. Like,
but he kind of is. And it's so funny because like it's all like even this now is like talking about how that kind of learning system is like very relic, is like very old, you know? So like this is what you had to do back then. Like, you know, like it's just really brutal.
To be honest though, sorry, I don't want to interrupt you, Jason, actually.
No, go ahead.
If there's a through line I see with any tricker who's good, it's this level of like dedication to it. Like what, it doesn't matter that like, oh, you know, he spent 2 hours on the dictionary instead of 2 hours tricking. It's the fact that he was thinking about tricks for so much and so obsessed to the point where he's like, I need to do this, you know? So.
Like at any means necessary, you know, like.
Oh yeah, and I remember like early on for me, it was any means necessary. I was like, you put a grass patch in front of me, or even just like near me, I'm like, I need to go trick. I'm gonna go trick right now. I need to, like, it was bad.
time, like the prime time of my learning for tricking, there weren't any tutorials. There was not one. So I just kind of had to rely on my own intuition and like just watching videos in slow-mo over and over again to do that. By the time tutorials came out, I was getting more into like coaching it. And the moves that I was struggling with, even with the tutorial, I was finding not much success with. But yeah, I use tutorials now more for coaching, like the next generation of triggers.
Of triggers.
I know, I saw that
No,
too.
I absolutely agree
great
on that.
captioning.
And when I started, because I started officially I started around 2006, 2007. That was like right as YouTube was beginning, so there really weren't too many tutorials. Like me,
I think this
and
like
Gab,
tricking has this like strange fixation on tutorials compared to like other sports. I mean maybe not so much other like trick sports.
I don't know if that's I don't think it's so much a fixation as much as it's like it's one of the few bits of content, like video content, that trickers make for other trickers. Like we
I
make
think
samplers for each other and we make tutorials for each other.
I think
There's
it's
not
also
really a
such
whole
an
lot of...
internet sport, and maybe that plays. It was such a new sport.
That's what I was gonna lead into is that it's not like an organized sport, so there's not like coaches that are like and it's also
Well,
so
no, there
new
are, but
too that we
There
yeah
are tricking coaches now.
now
Like
there
there are
are
actually
yes
people who their entire job is to train people in tricking and make tricking athletes. So, but it's
like in the
certainly not
context of like
standardized.
yeah and
That's for sure.
especially
And
not
thank God, it shouldn't
back
ever be.
when these guys were starting to trick either though. So like I don't know, I just think it's interesting how like how in high regard the sampler or the tutorial is held. Like everyone is like we're still talking about tutorials, even to this day. So
No, people are never going to stop needing to learn. And well, what was pointed out by the last speaker was the fact that just having the footage of the trick itself, even being able to put it into slow-mo, yeah, that's a great learning resource. If you want to learn how to do a trick, having that is certainly better than having nothing at all and just being told the name of the trick and just being told, go nuts. But it's not enough to just look at the thing in order to know what you're actually supposed to do. For a whole lot of people, once you get to a certain level, you get a whole lot better at picking apart a movement by taking a look at it. But before you've developed a certain amount of like maturity, like physical intuition maturity, it's just not going to be obvious to you how to turn that video of a trick into a pattern of movements that you should be doing to accomplish it.
Bryce, you're so right, because honestly, I didn't watch a lot of tutorials. Like I watched tutorials really early on, but I think by the time I had like double cork, I didn't really watch tutorials like that. And I was still learning new tricks, even tricks not even just like, oh, another twist of this. I was still learning, like my beats will still sucked. I just kept correcting it. I kept asking people for tips on it. But I think what you were saying more than anything is like I had a little bit more of a intuition about how a trick felt and how a trick should feel. And in addition, how to manipulate my body in 3D space. It's like we don't really humans. I don't think humans are inherently that good at that. And seeing tricks happen in front of you 24/7 like makes you good at it. It makes you be able to see a video and be like, I understand where his head went, where his foot went to create this shape to do this or whatever it might be.
I see all of the lines, which tells me what at every single stage of this. I know exactly what direction he's applying forces to each of his extremities, to each of his joints.
Yes.
Each of his or her joints, each of his or her extremities.
Yep, I agree.
I mean, a lot of our friends, we were in martial arts studio watching VHS tapes of competitions, of like NASCAR competitions, and learning from those. And then you had sites like Club 540 and Belang, and they had very limited tutorials, but those were some of the most, informative for that time period. And so, I would train during school watching these as much as I could, kind of stealing some screen time on my teacher's computer to go out and watch them. And they helped us in that moment when there really weren't too many. And now they got YouTube, Kojo's Trick Lab, and how many? There's a couple of gym owners now for just tricking gym. That was not a thing. Highly inspirational. Thank you guys.
Sorry, to add to that last point, when I first started, I watched a lot of tutorials. I loved Jujimufu, but I also was lucky enough to grow up right beside where Team Ryuko was. If some of you guys are, the older trickers will be more familiar with Team Ryuko probably, but they had classes that were like extreme martial arts and tricking, which was like super rare for the time, but now there's more classes like that around, which is cool to see. There's actual tricking schools, tricking programs, so it's a very different world from 15 years ago to now.
Yeah.
Even when we started, there was no like dedicated tricking programs.
I'm sure there may have been somewhere on Earth, like maybe a loop kicks at Twisters back when that was still a thing. But yeah, in my particular area and in all of the various areas that I visited, the way that people trained was they had either a gymnastics or a cheerleading or a martial arts gym, and someone was a coach for gymnastics or cheerleading or martial arts, and we just got floor time. Yep. That was how it worked.
Yeah, open gyms. That was
for me. It was For me, it was always just adult open gym. Yeah. It was never like we had some in to the gym itself. But
we yeah. I mean, there was definitely an open gym, but it was usually reserved. It was usually overrun with free runners. And when you were a free runner, that's not a problem. But when you want to train tricking, then the ideal circumstance is to now work at a gym. So that was teenage years for Bryce and for a lot of other trickers, I can imagine.
Next question. All right. So this one's going to be a little bit more about the future of tricking. In your experience, how has tricking plateaued since you first started, aside from the tricks? And are the plateaus things that we could fix?
Have the tricks plateaued?
Yeah,
That's new. That's news to me if that's occurred, because from where I'm sitting, it doesn't seem as though that's the case.
No,
there seems to be an increasing incline, but
I don't know if he's implying that difficulty has actually like stagnated, but I think he's trying to say like outside of that topic.
Yeah, I know he's saying outside of that topic, but he said other than
the way he said it implies that we have plateaued in difficulty, which.
And maybe
I'm sure he didn't mean it that way. Yeah. It's just, that's the implication of his statement, and I certainly don't agree with that. But I think we might get there someday. We're just not there today.
Yeah. And maybe in some sense, there have been some plateaus in the sense that, like, I mean, actually, I can't even say that because the power level does keep just increasing. But even when the power level isn't increasing like crazy, I still think there's so much horizontal expansion that I can't call it plateauing. Even if you want to...
Yeah, just like, okay, so someone lands quintuple full. Just because maybe no one will ever land sextuple full, do you think that tricks can't get any harder? Yeah. It's like you'd have to be... that would be ridiculous to suggest that.
I think also, if you want to consider plateauing, I think you also have to make it like, I guess, compare... what's the word? When something is similar or comparable, or like the ratio is there. Bryce, you're the math guy.
Well, I mean, you've already used the word comparable. I need more to go on than this.
Yeah, you're right. I don't know. Basically, what I'm trying to say is that I think to say something is plateauing, you also have to take into account what skill level we're at. So, for example,
you need some sort of scale, some sort of unit. Yeah,
that's the word I was looking for. Scale, like it has to scale with how difficult it is. So yeah, it might take like 3 years to go from double cork to triple cork, and then like I'm just making shit up, 6 years to go from triple cork to quad cork, and then you're gonna have to keep adding years, and then I don't know. I don't think there's a direct calculation you can make for that, but it's a consideration.
Yeah, I think tricking's improved in a lot of ways, like with the skill level. The event organization has gotten much, much better since I started, But compared to my first event I went to in 2011, there's a similar amount of people here now. So overall, like the size of tricking it's not really improved that much. It's not too noticeable.
Now that is interesting.
And I agree with that. I remember my first Neo, and I remember my last Neo. I mean, I don't know the actual numbers, but
I think we have a much higher attrition rate. Like this is like when I was growing up, it's like, yeah, there's tricking, now tricking is in the Coachella Valley. It's not just in the Bay Area in California. It's starting to spread out to all these different places. But a whole bunch of people who like got into the sport, who just started there, didn't keep on with it. And there are a couple of us. You can still find Ryan Guillory killing it on Instagram. Go follow him.
Sweet.
But not many of us are from the Valley are still going.
You're right. I think I agree with you with the attrition rate. I think A has to do with injuries, and B has to do with maybe the skill. Like, you have to get over a certain hump before you start enjoying tricks, So
when you're younger, it's a lot easier to enjoy tricking even without being a badass on the floor. But at a certain point, at least as a young guy, I have no idea what it's like to be a young woman walking around on the floor and feel this pressure. But as a young guy, there's this desire to be really competent in front of your boys. Otherwise, you just feel very diminished. So it's just a fact.
Yeah.
I think that's mainly down to a lack of media in our sport. I think we don't have many things that bring people into the sport. Compared to something like parkour, where they have constant films coming out, they have people making vlogs, really high quality ones, every single week from multiple different teams, and we really don't have much. So it's quite hard for people to find out about tricking and get drawn into it. So I think we need a lot more of that to get people into the sport, really.
And I completely agree, especially as someone who was watching parkour videos before I got into tricking. And I got into tricking, honestly, just because I was like, I want to do parkour. It could probably help me out. And then I realized I didn't really want to do parkour. So,
yeah, I'm one of the people who also started in parkour and then went to free running and eventually realized that tricking is life.
Yes.
I'm a tricking purist.
But yeah, no. But
okay.
Yeah, I definitely found parkour videos first, and there's something that has been maintained to this point. Parkour has just a greater mainstream presence. Like the mainstream people just walking down the street who aren't, they're not sequestered on the internet all day. So they're just complete normies. They know what parkour is. They know roughly what it is.
Yes.
They don't know what tricking is. If you ask them about tricking, a whole lot of them are going to think you're talking about, a form of prostitution.
And I think it's funny you say that, actually, because you're right that the people who, like the normies, know what parkour is and have a very good general vibe of what it is. Maybe they can't give you a dictionary definition.
Most of them would probably give you a definition that essentially amounted to free running. They wouldn't be able to give you the finer philosophical differences between free running and parkour. And you know what? Who gives a shit?
Right. But they still get the vibe right. I think that even when normies have heard of tricking before, or they're like, yeah, I have a friend who does tricking, I still notice that they still struggle to capture the essence of it. Yeah, they're not going to give a perfect dictionary definition, but they also are just like, it's kind of like gymnastics. It's like
everybody just says it's like gymnastics and martial arts, which is just like the most cringe explanation ever.
I know it's such a cop out.
Or
so easy though.
I don't know if people will say this anymore, but also free running, but like in place or whatever.
I just switched over at one point to saying like I'm an acrobat, and that's it, because like it just gets it across. Like I do acrobatics. You don't have to be any more specific than that, because people get the that takes care of it usually. It's not just gymnastics, it's not just other things, it's acrobatics. Boom.
And so I think to build on that, we don't have, like you're saying, we don't have a lot of information on tricking that's out there. And one of the ways that we've plateaued is that we've been doing all of this on our best guess. Almost every event is grown on looking back on it and seeing what can we do better. as good as we are about sharing information about tricking and what's working for us, nutrition, tutorials, things like that, we don't do a good job sharing best practices. And it's not anything malicious, it's just, I'm sure Mike can say this, like, it is unreal how hard it is to run an event, a local event, much less something to this caliber. There's only so many hours in the day, there's only so much you can think about when doing this analysis. And so now doing this higher level analysis, this is a plateau we have. This kind of goes into the next question we're gonna get asked, and I'll expand on it there, but we are only having the conversations we can in almost a mode of survival, right? We're really just going from year to year, month to month, like we're just trying to keep our head above water as a
okay,
community.
this I totally agree with. Like, yeah, tricking has been in a state of living paycheck to paycheck for a really long time. Not like trickers. I'm not saying trickers are broke, though. Definitely, some trickers are broke. That's just a fact in all sports, I'm sure.
Right.
But yeah, this is sort of like a better way to describe the whole like attrition rate. We take in seemingly about as many people as we lose at a pretty continuous rate. And obviously that's exactly what they're saying with like, yeah, the events are all exactly the same size. And yeah, sure, we might have some gyms spread out to more places. And so maybe we just have about the same density, just more spread out. And that is something to have accomplished, but it's nothing like the explosive growth of stuff like parkour or free running.
Yeah. But I think even beyond that, like he has a really good point about we're just kind of winging it, because especially from like a business standpoint, there's very few successful businesses that just wing it. Like there's a lot of research that goes into developing a product and like testing it with like the audience and
and people make plans for multiple years and stuff like that.
Yeah. None of these companies ever go into this stuff blind. Are they always correct? No, because they're all educated guesses. But the point is, they're not going in blind, which Nick has a really good point. We don't really have data that shows
to inform those educated guesses, right? Like we can't make informed decisions because we just don't know.
Exactly. Yeah, data on like what keeps trickers in the sport, what gets trickers interested in a gathering, that type of stuff. So definitely respect to Nick for taking on a little bit.
Always dropping knowledge bombs.
It's not like Korea. It's not like Japan. Some of these places, like in Korea, there's full-on investment in the infrastructure by the government. And so if you want to see what tricking could be, take a look at Korea. Like that is an incredible.
Yeah, but the United States is also never gonna subsidize.
No, absolutely not. It will never happen, dude. I could dream about a future where in every elementary school, middle school, and high school across America, there is like a tricking program, and you could have one of your class periods be a tricking class. Holy fuck, would that have been amazing? Yeah. But I don't think it's ever gonna happen.
No, United States is literally incapable of doing that.
Incredible situation.
We're not. We don't innovate in the field of education.
Oh no, and we're really good at actually innovating how to just like actually I'm gonna go on a rant. Let's just not.
Yeah, exactly. We can talk about this for a long time. We should.
Yeah, me and Bryce have had this conversation before. Anyway,
actually thinking about it, I mean there are gym chains that have 12, 13 gyms that are competing with the guy across the street. That's crazy, right? And we just don't have that. We're so isolated. So I think this is a plateau that we need to break through. And it's not entirely clear how we do that yet.
Yeah, so I agree with everything you guys said. I think it's also maybe the business side of things that has plateaued, right? The skills have gotten amazing, but I'll tell you, running a business or running an event, it's a totally different ball game. How can we get more exposure while maintaining? Triggers are about like the values and keeping it real and keeping it like about the culture or whatnot. But there's like, there's things in business you may have to do that don't always that may not seemingly align with all of that. So
this is a really big thing. So tricking culture is at odds with monetizing tricking. I think that's something that's pretty easy for people to agree with generally.
Mhm.
There are a lot of there are a lot of things that you could suggest for a lot of sports, like that I've heard from adults that have suggested, oh, here's what you should do if you want to, make money off of this sport. That it's like as soon as they start suggesting, it's like, you don't understand. That would never work because trickers wouldn't accept it.
Mhm.
Even if that worked in whatever sport you're talking about right now, whatever model that you're thinking of, trickers are kind of countercultural. They're kind of like a punk movement. So they don't really like centralization. They don't really like standardization.
I don't know if I fully agree though, because I would argue that skateboarding was also very counterculture, and they've had a
whole
lot
lot
of
of people
success.
absolutely, and a whole lot of people would argue that the version of skateboarding that's seen mainstream success isn't necessarily the version of skateboarding that we were all familiar with when we're growing up. Now, do I think that that is necessary? Like, I think that's just a fact. I don't think that that is good or bad. It's just an is.
Yeah.
If tricking is going to achieve success as a business financially as well as a sport, as an idea that people carry around in their head and transmit to others, it might have to change. And again, that's neither a good thing nor a bad thing. It's just an is thing.
Yeah.
But that doesn't change the fact that at the moment, the current version of it, just like the older version of skateboarding, it just has too many rough edges to be good at being mainstream.
Yeah. It's hard to say. I don't know if I fully. I mean, I agree with parts of what Ish is saying. Sometimes business decisions are actually very frequently business decisions are not, whether seemingly or for real, for the benefit of the humans engaging in said, whatever culture or whatever it might be. I don't know. I think I would hope that we would be mindful of that moving forward. You know what I mean? Is like try to balance out the idea of keeping trickers afloat by making money, but also trying to keep the culture, I guess, how we want it to be. It's a difficult
comes
balance to
down
strike.
to
Don't get me wrong, but
it all comes down to like, okay, what is it worth sacrificing about the sport to achieve something where you could have athletes actually live? Like, I think of that as like a career alternative, or at least have it be mainstream successful enough that enough people know about it that it could show up in a school classroom or a school class setting at some point or something of that matter.
Yeah. I think I just worry about and I haven't heard all of what Ishpain has to say. Maybe he's gonna say something different right now. But I do worry about having that cynical point of view, is that like I don't want it to devolve to the point where it's like, in order to make money you have to make decisions that are just gonna make trickers mad, and that's just how it is. Like that's just exactly like it's from an almost like an ideological perspective. Like I would hate to go down that cynical road.
That's like on one hand, like that true. It's like, all right, there should be a way that we can try to, like, because theoretically what we're trying to do is produce value. Whenever you're trying to acquire finances, when you're trying to acquire money, it's because you're trying to produce something valuable and then convince somebody else to whom it is valuable that they should pay you for it. That's all you are theoretically doing. And so the problem now is like, all right, how can we figure out a way to do that that isn't simultaneously extracting value from the sport of tricking in the form of the experience of the trickers in it? Yeah, that's a tough question to answer, but it is ultimately what is going to need to be answered in order for people to turn these into scalable, successful businesses. And that is what a whole lot of them are going to be interested in, isn't scaling it. Because very few people who run businesses are happy with just having a small, successful business. Even though I think that it's probably a more, at least for the foreseeable future, more sustainable way to have a tricking business, to just have a small gym somewhere and have them relatively spread out from one another.
Yeah, I could agree with that. Any thoughts, Jason, on the business?
No, not regarding that. I mean, I agree with Bryce. Like, ultimately we have to answer some tough decisions and make some like even tougher sacrifices in regards to like, what we want and how we're going to make tricking become mainstream and popular, like, you know, we'll have to compromise. And it's like, what compromises are we willing to make? And those are questions that, like, you know, I don't think that I'm qualified to answer. I don't think any individual tricker is qualified to answer it, to be honest.
Right.
I think it needs to be like a committee, basically, of like people who have.
I think it's,
you know,
I think definitely taking some sort of resolution, some sort of referendum to get a sense of what people in the sport think is important. But I don't think it's enough to just have the agreement of a large group of people. I think someone needs to come forward and present the ideas, like a solid argument for why we should be picking what we pick. And if the popular side cannot do that, I still wouldn't agree. Like, I still wouldn't come down on that side until the argument, until the idea for why we should be making this decision comes out and it's reasonable and can be articulated and argued for. Then
you heard it here, folks. Bryce is anti-democratic.
Do we want it to get?
I'm just kidding.
I am absolutely, for the exact same reason that Socrates was anti-democratic.
Nice, love it.
Is it the people aren't smart enough to know what they need?
It's really easy to get it. It's not necessarily that they're not smart enough. It's really easy to convince a group of. There's another good quote here. A person is smart. People are stupid. It's really easy to predict the behavior of large groups of people and control and manipulate the behavior of large groups of people. So this is like back when democracy was first invented as a government system back in ancient fucking Greece. The problem with democracy, something known as a demagogue, also immediately showed up. They were a person who did this. They used the fact that all you have to do in order to get into power is be popular enough, and then once you get there, you do whatever the fuck you want.
Yeah.
Whether it helps people or not.
I would say I agree with you, Bryce, except I think it's the opposite reason why it's dangerous. It's that people people as a whole aren't unpredictable. They're actually very predictable, and you can use that. Like, we have a lot of
that's
research.
that's exactly the point that I'm making. And so it's like, all right, people are so predictable and manipulatable when they're in large groups that you can get a large group of people to not have a reason but agree with an idea. And as soon as that's possible, I can't agree with your conclusion just because you have a large group of people who agree with it, right? Because you can have a large group of people who agree with something without all having a reason to. So until you also supply the reason, your large group of people is not sufficient evidence for me to conclude that there's a good reason to do that thing.
Yeah. I think it's a little bit of everything. I do like large groups of people agreeing with stuff, but I also do think that there needs some kind of small council that can actually make some educated decisions. And
I think having small groups of people make decisions for lots of other folks generally has just bad historical record. As much as I'm saying this about democracy, it's kind of like a matter of no matter what, it's going to happen to some extent that people are just going to do the things that they do. But not having a reason for doing what you're doing is never a good policy, even if a lot of people agree with you.
Not having a reason. Okay, sorry, I had to think about that.
No worries.
But okay, well, that was I guess our treatise on society
democracy.
And how it should be
You
organized.
heard it here first, folks.
Yeah.
Because then we might lose control of it. The thing that you love, do you want a big corporation getting their hands on it? So, I don't know. This is just something I think about.
I'm very anti big corporation and tricking. I think that's
also same here. Death to corpos.
Yeah. Crazy day to say that, Bryce.
Yeah, I'm sorry. I realized this is the wrong day to say that. Sorry.
Oh, I'm not apologizing for that.
One more quick one. I think just overall more demand for tricking would solve a lot of our problems in general. If there were for example, if there were 5 times as many people who are really passionate about tricking It means all of the events would have a lot easier time running. They'd be able to sell out. It means different tricking businesses would have way more potential customers. It means more people could open gyms because it would be easier to fill classes. We'd have more tricking media because there'd be more people in the sport, so we get more people with that skill set doing it. Everything would be better if more people were interested in tricking, in my opinion.
Ooh, okay, I'm sorry. I actually disagree with that. And not because I'm anti-tricking growth. I actually am very pro-tricking growth, but I would not stand there and say everything would be better, because I could definitely name some ways where it wouldn't.
Okay, yeah, I agree. It's overly optimistic to suggest that by making tricking just more popular, suddenly all of our problems will get better. All of the things will only improve. That's
Well, no,
certainly
I
not
even
the-
think some things would get worse. Like, I'm not.
No,
and-
that is I agree. I agree. That's what I'm saying. Frank, you don't need to say no to me.
I know. I just like
yes
disagreeing with you. Well, because okay, I guess to give the audience a concrete example is that, like I said, I'm very pro tricking growth and I want tricking to grow. But like, let's say what Kojo just said happens, and we do have a lot of people getting in to the point where gatherings are selling out. Now, because there's such a high demand for these gatherings, you better believe that the prices for those gatherings are going to go up. Like, that's just a law of economics.
Well, here's the thing, and some people could retort to that. Oh, the gyms are going to get larger, the gatherings are going to get larger, all of that's going to get larger in response. Like, okay, let's say that happens. The entire feeling of a gathering is going to change. It's going to go from Burning Man in the first couple of years to a concert.
Right.
Is what it's going to start to feel like.
Well, the concerts is exactly what I think about. I'm thinking about how much concert prices are right now. Like, there's a huge crisis with that right now. I don't know if I mean,
it's going to be there's going to be a huge number of people there and a lot of different places, a lot of different floors, a lot of different places to go to. But it's not going to be this like unified experience that people remember. And I'm sure a whole lot of people who will grow up in that area just who won't have experienced previous versions of tricking gatherings, that'll be totally fine for them. But for other folks who are witnessing that, I'm sure they'll feel like they've lost something.
Yeah, I agree. And I may be taking a microscope to what Kojo's saying. I know I get the general vibe of what he's saying, and I do agree with it. But just being overly critical.
Solve most of the problems that we have.
I agree with Kojo. I wrote notes for myself about the tricking media, that there isn't enough people, and I was using the parkour as a comparison as well when thinking about it, that the eyeballs watching tricking on a daily basis is just so small compared to many other sports. So we need people who are filming the videos, when trickers are getting together, because that's how tricking was growing, by making samplers and running gatherings. So I think that's what we should keep on doing as well. But now samplers are maybe not the way to go to reach the most people, so there should be
samplers were there's more samplers were kind of a product of their time. Nowadays, when people were first making samplers, for a whole lot of them, their purpose was not, or at least I'm assuming, to get as absolutely many views as they could possibly manage to with tricking content. That wasn't their goal. Their goal was, I have an artistic vision for what I want my tricks to look like by the end of this year or this training block. And I want to show my progress on that in an artistic way. That was what a sampler was about. And it meant making a lot of decisions that modern tricking content creators would regard as suboptimal in terms of acquiring views, which is what they're trying to do. They are trying to maximize the number of views that they can acquire from tricking content. And so, that's going to lead to that, samplers can't exist in a world where the mainstreamity of samplers in tricking can't exist, where the force that most of them are feeling is to have a maximum amount of numbers of eyes on them on a particular social media account. If you're trying to do that, maybe posting an occasional sampler now and then won't hurt, but to get algorithmic boost, to get
You
algorithmic
gotta get hit by
advantage,
a
you're going to need
car to do that.
exactly. You're exactly no. You really here's the thing. You really need to be doing like the stuff that we might characterize as like normie shit, like where you like maybe do like a trick somewhere in the video, but it's like something else is going on, really eye catching.
Yeah.
Like that's the kind of thing that actually gets people's eyes in a whole lot of ways, and that's really unfortunate because that's so far away from a tricking sampler that it, you know. I'm not sure you could find something that included tricking that was further from a tricking sampler. It's essentially like an advertisement with a trick somewhere in it.
Yeah.
Like, come watch the rest of my content. I promise there's this stuff in it, but also here's why I brought you.
I would say Bailey Payne and Aspen are really good examples of exactly what you talked about. I think Aspen does a little better. I like Aspen's content. Bailey Payne is like very clickbaity. Type of stuff.
Exactly. I feel the same way. I love Bailey. I'm glad that despite all of the crazy decisions he continues to make, that he hasn't hurt himself more seriously. Because
Dude,
good lord,
that guy's made of rubber. I don't know what the hell. It's crazy.
Probability defies him, and I hope it continues to do so. But yeah, no, I do actually much more appreciate Aspen's style of this sort of optimization. I think he's gotten much closer to doing it in a way that doesn't come across as obviously annoying.
Yeah. So, and then another thing I wanted to hit on is the sampler point that Velu was talking about. I also think it struggles to get eyes on it, but like mainly because you almost need pre-existing knowledge to get a sampler, right? You usually know a tricker. You're like, oh, Ethan Turner, I want to watch his sampler. Oh, Tiki Wu, I want to hit. Oh, Phil Gibbs. You type in the name. That's how you get there. Versus maybe some other sports where it's just like they're usually in a central place, like I don't know, ESPN, or like I'm sure there's like channels on YouTube dedicated to different sports. I think tricking has been shifting to doing that a little bit. Like there is samplers on bot, like Levi will post a sampler there, Jacoby will post a sampler there. Vertigo has done the same thing to an extent too. I think that does tend to get a little bit more eyes on it, especially normie eyes, because they don't need prior knowledge to get there. They're just like tricking. Oh, this is a tricking company.
And you're totally right, though. That is like the major barrier to samplers is like you have to go look them up. If you don't already know about them, you're not just going to have them suggested to you somehow.
Yes, exactly.
Easier biteable footage in Instagram and vlogs and whatever is working nowadays. But also to the fact about the tricking businesses that those have plateaued. Definitely. And I think the problem is that most of the trickers, when they grow over their teenage years and they start adulting, they slowly drift away from tricking. So if we want tricking to grow, we need those trickers who make their living around tricking by running the events, by running an online business,
so
by running
I can speak to this. Yeah, this is absolutely like this kind of goes to the attrition rate before. It's like even the trickers who stay in tricking, a large majority of them cannot devote as much time in their life to tricking as they did when they were a teenager. Like it's just not possible.
Yes, I agree.
If you want to have those sorts of people, like who are spending that much amount of their time in it, putting that amount of passionate care into it, even into their adult years, there needs to be like an actual career prospect in it for them. It's just gotta be.
I agree.
Gym or performing as a tricker, because that's the only way that you can actually keep on dedicating your daily life for a long period of time, for decades, for tricking and making it grow.
I think we can even speak to this point as like running the podcast. Like, it's not easy, especially as most of us don't actively train as much as we used to as well. Like, so
like this is secondary for us, and a whole lot of time it means that there's stuff that we know that we want to do that we just don't have time to like. We have so many things to get to, and not enough time to get to them, and who knows if we're going to get to them before something important pressing comes up first. Like that's just
and that's typically what happens. Is usually someone drops a crazy sampler, or like it
is really fucking hard to get caught up with our to-do list because it always just grows faster than we can get things done.
If you want to help us, Patreon, the money does help kind of subsidize us so we don't,
If there was some paradise future where we got enough money to just do this only, you could expect us to be putting out tricking content like really, really frequently.
Listen, I
and
could
at
be
a
in my
much higher
soapbox
quality.
about tricking all day for sure.
Literally, I could. I could find a lot of things to talk. Dude, if I had the monetary means, right? You know how much footage there is? You know how much like tricking history and analysis and stuff that we could just like we have years worth of material to do this.
Oh yeah, 100%.
No, that's not a problem.
Yeah.
Even if we were going every single day with multiple videos, that wouldn't be a problem.
Yeah, I agree.
Hi, I'm Andrew Ellis. I'm the host of Trial by Fire. On the,
my boy.
On the question of plateau and growth of the sport, I wanted to contribute from a slightly different perspective. I am also a b-boy. I started breaking in 2012, and then I started tricking in about 2022. And looking at the parallel of the two sports, breaking started roughly late 70s, early 80s, and here we are just this year. We had our debut in the Olympics, and there's mixed opinions even concerning that. A lot of the like OGs and
you could say that again. You could say that.
I think you're caught up on the Australian lady.
I mean, like, I bet even controversy at the event aside, just, you know, like, there would be contention if tricking were to be in the Olympics now. Like, I guarantee you, I bet you this, all three of us would have issues with it if there were suddenly Olympics or tricking in the Olympics next go around.
They could probably run it like
there would be something wrong.
They could run it like 95%.
They would allow Raygun to compete as a tricker. They'd be like, look, she's been training the entire past year.
No, but I'm not joking with you guys that they could probably run it like 95% exactly how I want it, and I would still be like, oh my god, dude, what a disaster. Like, what? Oh man.
We're concerned with, like, is this going to deteriorate the value of what the essence of the sport, like the culture, and there's certain compromises you have to make when it comes to growing the sport. So I think
hey, I said that.
Both an individualistic question, like there's certain things that each of us might gain from tricking that benefit us, and perhaps it's better that it remains in this pool or the collective essence of what it is now versus where do we want it to go. And, how many of you know who Raygun is?
God damn it.
Dude, man, it's so hard to not know who this bitch is.
That's true.
Australian dancer, so I don't know. I still feel like breaking is largely being misconstrued. Like, I'm looking at people like Phil Wizard and our very own Victor, B-Boy Victor, and I'm like, oh my god, this is the most amazing thing ever. And they choose the one kangaroo hop, and that's like, I don't know. So
yeah, I agree with him that I also kind of get frustrated whenever like Raygun is brought up because of like, dude, I swear the event was cool. It's just like the internet likes to make memes, so it's like.
Well, no. Here's the thing.
That was the takeaway.
The internet likes to make memes, and it's like, no shit. The entirety of the breakdancing performances got overshadowed by the fact that they let a literal amateur go on stage and perform. Do you think, like, if they just let a random fuck compete in the gymnastics tumbling routines, that wouldn't have been the only fucking thing people talked about?
Valid.
Like,
yeah.
Holy shit. Like, this isn't, yeah, no, this is absolutely the committee's fault. Everybody who was involved in allowing Raygun to get up there, and Raygun herself, she should be ashamed. That was so disrespectful to the sport of breakdancing and to the people who actually practice, the people who put their life and you know, blood, sweat, and hard work into it. Like, it's fucked up. Very annoying. Very annoying.
Like, when we put ourselves on a platform for others to judge, we're kind of subject to what they have to say. And I don't know, is Raygun a bad thing? who's to say? Maybe ultimately that is a stepping stone to
Chad, yes.
becoming more of a solidified place in the Olympics, maybe in a professional realm.
Adding on to that.
Okay, I do disagree with him in the last part there. Reagan is not a stepping stone to
absolutely
get to
not
this.
helping the sport of breakdancing. Certainly not as a foot getting in terms of attaining a foothold at the Olympics. Like,
right.
Like,
definitely not.
as tricking is growing and as we get more exposure, like, to the layperson, I guess, like somebody who's not exposed to tricking, I think something that can help with plateauing is us keeping the culture alive, and that just means gathering culture. Back in the day, gatherings were very intimate. You used to know it was your opportunity to meet and train with your hero, spend some time with them, and then go home with like a personal story that you have about them. Nowadays, there's not as much, there's so many people, it's not a problem, but there's just a slight lack of intimacy. And that lack of intimacy could be something that if we don't preserve this one thing that we love so much and are passionate about, if it falls in the wrong hands, then they're going to try and represent us. But all of us, even.
I totally agree, but I think unfortunately Gabby is being a little optimistic about this. Like the feeling of intimacy that so pervades so many tricking gatherings cannot survive them becoming large like a mainstream gathering. It's not a matter of having the OGs show up and talk to everybody, because at a certain point you can't have an intimate conversation with 20 to 30 people.
Yeah.
Or 20 to 30 different groups of people at an event.
I don't think that necessarily means that they're mutually exclusive, though. I think you still see this today. There are still local gatherings that go on that definitely are intimate. Like, I would even say the Florida gathering to a large extent was like Central Florida gathering. I guess maybe not this last year, but the year before, like pretty intimate.
But like I don't think it was large enough to the point where it was like super clickified. This is what I'm saying. It's like the clickification. It isn't something that human beings like. There isn't a Gestapo walking around and like beating people with nightsticks if they don't get into cliques once they've gotten over a certain size of gathering.
Right.
It's just something people naturally do. You can't help it. And once it starts to happen, that feeling of intimacy is going to go away quickly, because those giants, the titans walking around the gathering, who you used to just pop into a conversation with you that you were having with your friend, like they're still doing that, but there's 96 other friend groups. And so you're just not in the one that he happened to pop into, and so you just won't feel that intimacy. And it's numerically, it's just not possible.
Yeah. But what I'm saying is we can still have those two types of gatherings happen. I agree that bigger gatherings are just not going to have that, but alongside, people are still going to be doing local gatherings that could preserve it.
So let's talk about that. So in order to have them maintain the size that would create intimacy, at some point you're going to have to start excluding people.
No, but I don't mean like a purposeful exclusion. I mean like we're having a local, like, hey guys, I'm in Fort Myers. Tampa boys are coming down. Like, we're gonna have a small little mini gathering. Like,
what if you invited everybody in Fort Myers to come play basketball with you if they could play basketball and they were interested? How many people would show up? Yeah, it's like, look, this is
you're
too
right,
big.
You're right.
Like restricting it locally is not good enough.
Wait, that's such a good point, Bryce. That's funny.
Not just everybody up here. If you are passionate about this sport, then you can do something as well. You can be a representative. If you have that fire in your heart, then use it, because otherwise, then that guy that just like in a suit that just applied for the job got it. You know what I mean? Like, we have to step up and do that. That can help the sport grow much more.
Cool. So before you talk, can I just real quick? So the next question was, what is something that you think tricking needs, can acquire soon, but doesn't have yet? I feel like we're already talking about that. So if we could just answer or keep talking through the lens of the next question.
No, that's perfect, actually. I was just going to have a call to action. I was going to be very brief because, we're all rambling. But when I don't know, I think people are there's a lot of fear involved with change, right? So we don't want tricking to become something different or whatever else. And also, we think that when we're done tricking, when we're not able to anymore due to injury or age or whatever else, that you have to just stop tricking. But that's not true. You can be creative. There are outlets that we already have right now that you can do similar media type things, but there are things that we haven't even thought of yet, ways to contribute to tricking that, we haven't done.
Yes.
Maybe somebody
and
can make
actually, I'd like to
some
speak to
great-
this. You mentioned something being creative. Tricking is an aesthetic discipline. It's about using physical training to bring about a particular aesthetic expression. You want to bring about what you think about as beautiful in terms of tricks into the world. In a way, it's a lot like bodybuilding in the sense that you're using physical training to achieve a particular aesthetic desire. What that means is, at heart, you are a creative. You happen to be doing athletics, a sport, in order to achieve, like, that is your paintbrush, but what you are doing is painting. And so if you are, either in a point where you're too injured to trick and so you're waiting to recover, or your tricking has slowed down and you just don't have tricking as much as an outlet anymore, and you really seek to fill that hole in your life that tricking used to, just, don't necessarily continue tricking to the extent that you're able to, because it's just something that will make you happy, but try picking up other creative disciplines. I've recently been going and checking out a bunch of different artistic disciplines. I've been learning how to draw again, and I'm gonna get some sculpting supplies so that I can get back into sculpting. Since I stopped. I used to when I was in high school. I haven't since. But yeah, no, it's that same sort of desire to see the thing that is in your head come into reality. You can achieve that in other ways.
Yes.
And still keep yourself physically healthy by doing what tricking is, feasible for you, without putting unreasonable physical demands on yourself.
Yeah, just spam corks when you're older. It's the way to go.
There you
go. And then get a creative hobby.
Races specifically for tricking, or what I'm trying to say is that if you're very passionate about it and you want to be involved in tricking, you don't have to stop being involved in tricking. You can always combine your passions, and I think that's the most beautiful thing about that. It's like tricking is freedom, and we get to do whatever we want pretty much. And that's why I like tricking so much, and a lot of other things. Life, we get to choose what we want to do, right? So you can combine your passions with whatever professional thing that you come to love and do, or with tricking itself, or with content creation, or with, like I said, anything you have not even thought of yet. Just try to combine your passions and see what happens, and you can contribute to tricking as long as you want, That's pretty much all I got to say.
So at risk of going into the next question, I'll try not to, but to add to Neil's point, large action and a large reaction within the community. So I would argue that your skill set is the least important thing in tricking. Your high five, your ability to have an intimate
This is what Scott
experience.
Skelton said.
This is the Scott Skelton
I rarely
argument,
remember
yeah.
the tricks that were done on the floor, but I do remember who gave me a high five. And so
No, this is totally true. This is here's the thing. It's whenever anybody tells you that life isn't all about money or things, they're absolutely right. When you're sitting there at the end of it, the only thing you will have before it all turns off is the experiences that you got to experience. That's it. Those are the most valuable things in your life. That's the thing that you're spending all of your life trying to achieve. It's the experience, your moment-to-moment experiences that you're having. And so the people who make an impression on you at a gathering, the people who make that experience enjoyable and worth remembering, those are the people who make the gathering. It's not the people who make the tricks happen on the floor. That's cool. That is cool. And I really appreciate when people are providing. But it's that is just a small component of the experience. And everybody could be absolutely smashing it on the floor, and I could be having an awful time if just a couple other things are happening.
Well, even I completely agree with you, because even right now, I'm trying to think of trickers that I looked up to back then, specifically skill wise, and I'm sure I can name a few of them, but I think the biggest ones I can name are either the best in the world at the time, or people like Nick Vale and Bellew, who still do stuff related to tricking, or Neil, who I think Neil's at the forefront of so many people's minds, and like he's a really good tricker, but he wasn't the world's best. And you know, I don't know. It's like, what else do you contribute to tricking that keeps you relevant? I guess, you know what I mean. So
please use it. Call to action, right? Now, the second thing that I wanted to touch on, and I'll be brief, is that what you were saying, Neil, and what you guys were saying about combining the things and not letting tricking end on the floor. I haven't done tricks in almost a decade, right? But I spend hours every single week working on
Don't
tricking.
lie.
I focus on the day.
I saw him tricking Portland.
I've
This man's a
sessioned with
liar.
it. I know. I
This man's
sessioned with
a
this man in
liar.
Portland. I don't know what he's trying to push.
Like, you could throw
He's a
tricks here and there, but he
liar.
hasn't been tricking.
Oh, bullshit.
I know what
The
he
man's
is.
done combos. Yeah, okay, so he doesn't trick like he used to when he was younger. I don't give a fuck. The man still tricks. He just doesn't. Yeah, come on.
It's something we don't have. We don't have a unified data set, and we can't make data-driven decisions. This is a problem I'm like hell-bent on solving. And so I think that this adds a lot to tricking. There's food, there's the healing center, there's like health and tricking. This helps us break through the plateaus, is the non-tricking things. We've broken through plenty of plateaus on the floor, and it's the stuff off the floor that's stopping us from moving forward. And you guys have way more power over that than like even we do. And so I think the power's out there, it's not up here, in breaking through the plateaus that we've been seeing.
I'm excited to see.
I definitely agree with that. I like imagine how much we're just missing out on by people who aren't contributing their additional skill sets to. I mean, we can examine it in just like sheer content creation too. Because like only so many people are creating content for tricking.
There's so many forms of content that like we don't even know exists out there that could be really fun, really tricking. So I agree.
But in the same way, like there could be some other like product or something like, you know, some untapped potential within the tricking marketplace as well. You know, that's just we don't know because someone isn't participating in it yet.
Box cutter feet picks.
I'd pay for that.
Only boxes, and it's only box cutter footage.
Wait, that's actually kind of funny. Okay.
So I think one thing that we should be doing that we could do quite easily is having national and international championships and calling them that. I think this should just be called the international tricking
man,
championship.
you're gonna bring on the ire of tricking Canada or whatever the fuck.
No, that's true.
Yeah,
the
star chart. He's gonna question your qualifications, whether or not you have the right to claim the global or
the
international
legitimacy.
title.
Yeah,
exactly.
He already thinks Vertigo's corrupt. I'm pretty sure. So.
And Kojo is on the.
How are you ever gonna recover from that?
Is on the bad list. I don't know what exactly it's called, but he's banned. I'm pretty sure.
How is that list? Is there a good list? Is it longer or shorter than the bad list? 'Cause that bad list is long.
Let's be honest. With things like this, it's always the bad list that's longer.
Yeah.
They somehow have.
I don't think there
enemies.
isn't a good list actually. I think if you're just on the star chart, you've made the good list.
Well, it's like. Okay, we too much of a sidebar.
Yeah,
too much
you're right,
of a sidebar.
you're right.
I'll get distracted.
Maybe one day
I gotta
we'll
stop
talk
myself.
about the star chart.
One day,
For
maybe.
the champion of the world. Because when you say that, it makes it so much easier for people who win and place well at these events to use that to their advantage. Like, for example, there was recently a UK tricking championship.
That sounds like
in
exactly the sort of thing a criminal organization would say. Sorry.
Prop up their puppet. Just for
a cabal, an international cabal, a mafia-like organization.
I promise you, there's way
We're not
easier.
crazy. We're not fucking crazy. I promise.
Way easier ways to make money than being a shadowy tricking cabal. I can guarantee you that.
It wasn't like a complex thing. They just ran it at a gym. We didn't have loads of regional qualifiers. It was just who showed up, competed, and then they were the champion. But it ended up being in the paper on the Isle of Wight how well their students did. Now, if we didn't call it that, if it was just a normal gathering and they won the battles at the gathering, that wouldn't have happened. Stuff like that's great for parental support. If they can say
Okay, so it's about tricking the local media into reporting on your event.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm not saying it. I'm not saying don't do it. I'm
It's
just
a
saying
marketing.
that
it's
is
just,
an interesting marketing strategy.
It's just
that
a
I hadn't
marketing
considered.
thing.
Yeah, no, that's absolutely a marketing strategy. I just hadn't considered it before. Like, yeah, okay.
Yeah, and I think it's fine as long as it's not done in completely bad faith. Like, you know what I mean? Is like, as long as
exactly.
you're
It's
not
like you got to be
stretching.
careful about doing stuff like this cynically because I'm pretty sure that's a pretty good way to lose all of your credibility and the goodwill of your community just like that.
Yeah.
So
like Kojo didn't call it the International Tricking Championships. He could have, like, he could have just made it the
Mr.
name.
Tricking Universe.
Yeah. Bold of us to assume that every Miss Universe is on Earth.
I'm sorry.
National champion, then it's going to get mentioned at the school. It's going to be in like bulletin posts and stuff like that. And it's just better for things outside of the sport. It doesn't actually matter if they really are, if it really is the world championship, if there's people missing, that doesn't matter. It's just way more valuable to the sport if we call it that. And I think people shouldn't be afraid to run.
But then everyone's gonna call it that. That's the problem. Yeah, I mean,
exactly.
I get
we're gonna devalue the meaning of these titles.
Right.
I understand. Like, I do think that there's like on one hand, what he's trying to say is like, yeah, you know, you have some event, you give somebody some crazy, amazing sounding title for winning the championship, but it's like, you know, it was a championship with like 40 people in it.
Yeah.
It's just
right.
I think
the craziest thing in the world.
I think we could do this with Florida. Like, you know, maybe I'll talk to Andrew, but next Central Florida gathering, just like, hey, this is the Florida champion, and like only have Floridians join or something.
There's nothing especially harmful about going and hyping up. It's when you start taking credit for achievements that you didn't actually achieve. Like, that's when it starts. It's like, okay, I am the world champion tricker. It's like, okay, but are you though? Because the kind of person who would have to claim that would have to have done things that I don't think you did. So
valid. Yeah.
National and international championships and call them that. It's not going to be perfect. You're not going to have everything in place, but it's a lot better than nothing.
For all the local communities, what I think should be done for tricking, for years and for decades there has been the problem that I hear from people, oh, we don't have the gym access, the gymnasts won't let us train. So the local communities need to step up and organize open sessions where people train together. Because when trickers are together, they come up with different ideas, they start to collaborate. So you need to step up on your own local communities, organize the sessions, hopefully organize some tricking classes as well, so it's much easier for new people to come in, and slowly you turn them from the classes into real trickers who join the open sessions and gatherings.
Absolutely,
So
and this
that's
is
what's
also
needed.
a warning for gymnasts out there. Your sport is slowly dying because you guys aren't properly dealing with it, and if you don't treat with trickers in a friendly way, when you all just don't have enough access to gyms, like we all didn't have enough access to gyms, if
we're gonna treat you the same way.
No, exactly. If you have cultivated a cultural relationship with trickers that is just fucking negative, like it has been in the past, that those chickens are gonna come home to roost.
Yeah.
So just don't do that. There's no reason to. We're both doing dope ass sports. Why can't we just admire each other's Johnsons about it?
Yeah, I think this is a little region dependent. I think the gymnastics places in Florida have been pretty kind to us, but I have heard of this issue.
Yeah, this is something that I mostly experienced over in California. Since I've come over to Florida, I have never all in Florida. The only thing I have experienced from other movement people, no matter what sport it happened to be, is just like, oh, that's cool.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So,
but I have heard that gymnasts can get pretty uppity about their sport. But overall,
they love to tell you how you're doing it wrong.
Yes. And I have met gymnasts like that. But regardless, I think Velu brings up a good point here. I do want to stress that I don't know if he means that like you should open up your own gym or if you should just try to organize the sessions. I definitely agree on organizing the sessions. I feel like asking people to open up their own gym is a big ask because that's a lot of money to invest that you might lose as well, and not everyone has the means as well. But absolutely so for really bartering with your local gym and being like, hey, if we get 10 people, will you let us have open gym, and then can we do that every Friday? Like that, you'd be surprised how much you could barter with these places. Like they're
Absolutely.
not.
I mean, that was the early gym arrangement in the Coachella Valley a long ago, before the classes were even a thing.
Yeah.
That all around the world.
Yeah, I agree with everything that's being said, and just an observation that I've made over the years that I've been in tricking is usually when people get together, either they form like a team. It's usually when they form a team that opportunities for them start to open up like really fast. And the thing is, I mean, if money's a problem or logistics with traveling is a problem, when you have like multiple people that you're planning these things with, it becomes a lot easier. So one thing, I think that helps out like within the local community, but then like also doing that with a team, you're able to travel around and like kind of scope out what people are doing around like the national level or international level. And then you guys have like a really good grasp on like what the needs are of the greater community at like a particular point in time. So like I've been around, like I said, for like 2 decades, but at the same time, if I was gonna throw an event like next year, I don't know what you guys want or like what you want from the event, but you guys know. So I think it's like really important that you guys get together, form team. So even like us.
Yeah, okay. That's an interesting reason to advocate for the forming of teams. But I do think like I think there's lots of reasons to advocate for trickers to form teams of not even necessarily just locals in their community that they train with often, but even, maybe make a team of people who you just all, appreciate each other's style, and you only ever communicate over the the internet, but you edit footage together, and whenever you have a gathering that you guys can all show up at, you guys show up there and hang out. Like
Team Pangea, let's go.
like no, I think that's really like the fact that it keeps you connected with lots of different aspects of the community. That's certainly one aspect of it, but I think it keeps you accountable. Having a group of people who you're trying to, who you've consider in your mind that you've entered into some collaborative effort on something like tricking with, it's going to keep you in the back of your mind feeling generally more accountable, I think, to your routine and stuff. I know it certainly did for me.
You guys, like you're the ones who are really in control over the like.
Cool. All right, let's move on to the next question. Thanks, guys. So question 4. Can you ever truly quit tricking? And if so, do you have a plan for life after tricking?
Yeah, no, stupid question.
No one quits tricking.
The answer is obvious.
Yeah.
I like this question.
I think Jason's quit tricking a few times. If that tells you anything.
I've quit tricking right now.
Yeah. Exactly.
So I like to joke that, when I finally stop tricking, I'm going to have a cabin in the woods with a husky, a cellar full of honey buns, and just disappear. That is my plan. That's been my plan.
Solid.
But in a very serious note, I don't think you can ever really quit tricking. Everybody that's here is here because tricking called out to you in whatever way, shape, and form. And, being up here with these guys, some of us been doing this for 2 decades, some of us just a little under 15 years, but the fact that we're still here, in a sport that is rapidly changing, evolving, and growing. And not only that, life happens, we grow up, if we ever grow up, we get jobs, have families, things like that. And I see it happening more and more that with that being the case, people are still coming to gatherings. They're still in the community. They're still talking to people, trying to kind of keep up with the times. I think we will never truly quit tricking. We may slow down a little bit. We may find different avenues for it, but once you're a tricker at heart. It'll never leave you. It'll never leave you.
Dude, it's like taking heroin for a long time. Tricking changes your neurons, man. It's that brain chemistry is altered permanently, and you can never go back.
Yeah. I definitely see 3D space different. And I definitely agree with him that like I feel very connected to my inner child in a way that I think my other fellow 28-year-olds don't.
Yes.
To be honest with you, I do like just going out there and prancing in a field and just throwing yourself. It's fun. And honestly, I really missed it. Like the past 3 years, I really haven't been able to trick that much. And like since I've moved to Atlanta, I've been tricking so much, and I feel like significantly happier all the time because of it. So yeah, completely. Even if I'm not doing anything crazy, by the way, like so.
Heroes that we wanted to be as kids, except now we're older and we can afford the spandex outfits to go jump.
Oh yeah, and every tricker is they're just a nerd. Like that's just how we got into it. There's no tricker that's got into tricking without being an absolute nerd and just wanting to, I don't know, be an airbender or like a superhero or something.
It always, well, I mean, like it always starts from the same observation. That was so cool.
Yeah.
The primal.
Everybody geeking out over something.
The masculine urge to just think that something is cool.
To geek out over something, yeah.
Yeah.
So that's true.
Yes, and I think in particular the impact that tricking has on you. So I often say like I didn't have like a dad or an older brother or someone like that I should have been basing myself off of in my formative years, but I had this. And so the school system kind of failed me, and I didn't think that I could learn, and tricking taught me how I learned. And so when I was able to leave tricking as an athlete, I was able to apply it. It turns out I was actually very good at learning. I've done a lot since I've left tricking and doing the tricks rather. And so I think the impact tricking has on you is super unique, right? Like there's some kind of stimulus in this crowd that every person probably should get, like, and it's gonna come from different people. We grow so much when we're around this many perspectives from this many places in the world. I mean, we all probably know somebody that never left their hometown, right? And I can go talk to someone from France, I can go talk to somebody from Asia, from Finland. Like I can learn about the world without going through some source that may have a lens that is not, great. And so
I can't tell you how many I like to keep up with politics. I've talked about geopolitics with so many people from different countries because of tricking. So it's really cool, actually.
It's one of the best things about having a hobby and having the internet, so that you can, meet with people. Like tricking doesn't just do this for me. TTRPGs do this for me because my TTRPG group, literally, I have people from all over the world in it, so I get to hear about shit from all over the world. It's great.
Yeah.
Everybody, find people who care about what you care about, and don't limit your search to just the people who live next to you.
Yes, I agree. And it's like a lot cooler to, you read an article and you see something that goes on, but then to get someone's perspective who lives in that country of what's going on, a lot of times gives you a fresher perspective. But not only that, you remember that person. Like, I have like a friend from Brazil, and it's just like every time I see Brazil in the news, I'm like, oh yeah, I wonder how he's doing. And that piece of news just like sticks with me more. And so like I feel like I just know a little bit more about Brazil just because of that. Just because this guy's at the forefront of my head, so I can relate this article to him or whatever the hell. So yeah.
That impact, I think, will never leave you. And my plan for life after tricking, is to lean into that and try and build the opportunity for other people to have that same influence. Tricking was my older brother, not the one that I had, right? And tricking was the best older brother I could have, right?
Yeah, real talk. This is honestly my interest in tricking is like in as far as like a legacy. If there was something that I could leave behind for tricking, I would totally like to do this because it's an amazing sport. It's a great thing. Yeah, I have lots of hobbies now, including math, that just revolves around aesthetic expression, and tricking is just like one of those, and I appreciate it for that reason. But as a young man who was going through a whole lot of rough things when tricking was in my life, when I started to actually go through most of my hardcore training, like that was such an important thing for me. I want other people who are going through difficult times to have access to it too, like I had to, because I I shudder to think what would have happened if I didn't have it at the time, how I would have turned out, and I can only imagine uh, how much better so many people uh, would see their life if they just had access to something like that, if they knew there was something like that around.
Absolutely. Yeah, in psychology, there's the concept of sublimation, I believe it is, which is essentially you're feeling angry, you're feeling frustrated or sad. Instead of taking it out on something that would be not productive, like another person or animal or something like that, you take it out on something productive. It's like, okay, I'm frustrated. I could just like punch a punching bag, and I feel like significantly better. So it's the same thing with tricking. It's just like I've definitely used it as that for a lot of the stuff I've gone through in life, for sure. So.
And I've learned important things from it too, important life skills. So yeah, there's lots to come out of tricking, and I want people to have access to that who otherwise wouldn't.
Yep.
Everything that I do is focused on, yes, I live my life with my wife. We're having a kid soon. Like, I'm focused on the family.
Yay! Congratulations, Nick Vale. Way to go.
I actually did not know that.
Thank you. I'm excited to be a girl dad.
Oh my goodness.
I want to be a girl dad so bad, dude. Oh man.
Thank you. And so, yes, it's these things, but also the way that I approach that relationship has been impacted by tricking. And so it'll never leave me. And I think that it's a charge of ours to make sure that other people get that opportunity, because the reach is kind of small right now and it should be bigger. And so that's ultimately my plan. I can't speak for everyone else here, but we want to add accessibility to our situation so other people can get what we got out of it.
Absolutely. I think that couldn't be better said.
Yep.
Can I ever quit tricking? Oh my God. I don't think so. So for me, I've been tricking for a long time, slowing down as one does. But being involved in a community and being around tricking, calling myself a tricker, I don't think that's really gonna end. And I know many of the people that I came up with share like a very similar mindset to me as well about that. And the thing that's most exciting though about this community is that we're not even close to like reaching any kind of like ceiling with like skill. And it's really exciting to like come to an event like this and it's like, oh, what's so-and-so gonna do? You know, like that kind of thing. Like that just seems to never have like a limit. So I think that's like something really unique and special about tricking and why I always want to be around it. I just want to see what the heck you guys are gonna do next.
There will come a time where that isn't necessarily, well, there may come a time where that isn't necessarily what people are associating with tricking. It might not be for a very, very long time if what we've learned about language and what the possibility of tricks that could exist is anything to go by. There's like a huge, huge,
unexplored territory.
Exactly. There's just a lot of options that no one's touched yet. So there's still, a lot of time theoretically into the future where people could be breaking new ground and landing new things and essentially innovating on new movement skills. But there may come a time where that's not necessarily what's happening anymore, and the sorts of improvements are really incremental, like they are in a whole bunch of other sports.
Right.
Even then, I still think that we would have this feature of tricking where you couldn't get away from it. And again, my argument is just because it alters your brain chemistry, man. Like it literally, you cannot think the same the way you could think before you started tricking.
Yeah,
it's just not possible.
I could agree with that. I wonder how, because we say all these things, and I struggle to see how it's in an essence or an essential way different from any other sport. But then I also think about like baseball or soccer. It's like, okay, soccer, you're like running and you're kicking. Baseball, I don't know, you're like throwing, you're batting.
Yeah, when it comes to it, like I think it's just comes down to like the actual goal in mind with the sport. When it comes to the sports you're describing, those are competitive sports. Whereas what we're describing is something more like figure skating or the thing that I gave earlier, bodybuilding. you have an aesthetic desire. You're seeking to achieve some sort of artistic vision, but the medium by which you do that is the physical form, your athleticism.
Okay, I see. Yeah, no, I see. And even like movement wise, like the reason I brought up baseball and soccer is like it requires a lot of athleticism to do. Don't get me wrong, and it's very impressive. Yeah. But sports like gymnastics, figure skating, you brought up tricking, even like b-boying, I feel like the whole bodiness and the manipulating your body part of it, like there has to be something like special there. Like I don't know, I get something out of that I don't get out of whenever I like play a game of pickup basketball. Like, you know what I mean? And it's not even necessarily the artistic part, I want to say. But maybe, I don't know. Maybe I'm wrong.
It's like a body sport. It's a sport where the only appliance, the only what did they call them in gymnastics? I've been blanking on the term. Apparatus. The only apparatus that you have access to is the floor, is your body. That's it. But that thing could be said theoretically for lots of sports.
Valid.
That I don't think you would
physically
include in that list.
You're going to have to eventually. I don't know. like to quit. Physically, we're going to have to quit. That's what I'm saying, just physically. But it's earlier in my life, it was a big part of my life, but now it's just kind of a piece of a bigger picture that is the life of Ish Payne.
Yeah.
But like, for example, I met my wife trying to learn how to backflip. She was a gymnastics coach early on in tricking before, we had all these tutorials. I was calling all the local gyms, hey, teach me how to backflip. So we had my son, Michael. Come on up, Michael. And this is how I live on through tricking. It never ends. It never truly ends.
I would also like to say something real quick. We think of tricking a lot as the tricks that we do, right? It's the triple corks or double B twists or whatever, right? But I think we can all agree that a lot of tricking is the mindset. It's trying to work on something really, really hard and then doing it, and then feeling that satisfaction of doing it. Like, I just did something that not very many people in the world can do, right?
Exactly, yes. The feeling of accomplishing tricking is the exact same feeling of playing Dark Souls. It is literally the exact same feeling of that. It's just a whole lot of like, fuck, I was so close, and fuck, I'm so frustrated, that didn't work, and man, and then eventually you get through, and it's so cathartic. It's so good, and then it's easy.
You've just informed all my game choices, because my top games are obviously Souls-likes, and I also love platformers, and specifically like platformers that are stupid difficult that you need to like they respawn you instantly because they know you're gonna die, type of thing.
but it's like the reason why it's difficult is because it's a steep learning curve. Like once you've learned the thing, like suddenly now it's really easy for you to do this because you've learned the thing.
No, absolutely. Now, like, yeah, I can absolutely wreck in Dark Souls, and like you put me in front of Celeste, I'm like, yeah, dude, I got this game. This is not, and it took me hours to get that good, but so
part of our lives. I think that's also tricking. When I run Vertigo, like, my mindset is almost the exact same as when I finish a session, right? I'm thinking, all right, this was an amazing setup, but like, oh, this one thing could be improved. This other thing could be improved. What did somebody else say that I can apply to maybe next year, right? And with that, like, Vertigo is part of my tricking.
I think my comment is really hitting on something, maybe not even specifically unique to tricking, but still very important.
People would describe this as their kung fu, I think, is what is kind of going on here. Like, this is the thing that these are your practiced techniques. Like, this is the thing that you are devoting your grind to. And yeah, tricking is just it's really, really easy to see and feel that progress because there's so many different directions in which it can work out for you. And so you have a lot of opportunities. But yeah, it's not tricking that this is specific to. This is like, yeah, this is your kung fu. And if you approach anything in your life can be your kung fu. Making tea can be your kung fu. If you approach it with the sort of rigorous training and self-discipline that it requires to do so.
Absolutely. Wow.
We learned a trick, and we don't just like do a backflip, never do it again. We do the backflip till we can never get it wrong. This is what I was missing in school. And so I dropped out of high school and came back to school when I was like 26 and applied that mentality.
God damn, he was 26 when he went back to school?
Yeah.
That's
impressive story.
Jesus
honestly.
Christ.
Yeah.
I couldn't learn.
I actually didn't know that he dropped out of high school.
Yeah.
And I owe that to tricking. And so everyone here has every skill that you already need. Every skill that you already need to be the best version of what you can be, and way better than anyone ever thought from the outside looking in. So I hope you feel empowered. Mike has shown it with how he's done this. We've all shown it in different ways. For me, I think I'm actually better at that stuff than I ever was at tricking. But it's tricking that taught me how to be great at that. So just adding context here, lad.
It's a really good point. I just wanted to add to that last thought as well that like tricking's not just a physical aspect, right? And if injuries or life forces you to have to put tricking on hold physically, you still belong at gatherings and you belong at sessions and wherever you want to be, because it's not just the physical, that's like the least important part.
I still love having all the oldies there at the gatherings, even though they don't do tricks. So
absolutely.
We're having the injured boys at the session. Just hits different.
It's almost the main reason I go to gatherings now, is just to see the boys. So
I want to add one last thing. Like, you know, for me, I'm at my happiest when I'm in a room full of people like this. This is when I'm at my happiest. Like, you know, we go through life, we go through our daily struggles, everybody deals with something different. But when I'm in a room full of people like this, growing up when I was with my friends, focusing on tricks, focusing on just going beyond the limits of human possibility, that was where I was at my happiest. And even now, like, I look out in this room and there is nothing else in the world that brings me more joy than to see faces looking back at me.
This is going to sound, to anybody outside of tricking, this is going to sound like he is acting, like this is cringe, like this is just not true.
Yeah.
And I can't emphasize to you how much this is like an almost universal experience for trickers.
Yeah.
It's hard to overstate just how powerful it is to be in a room with other trickers. It's like, imagine if you were interested in sculpting, but you were like the only person you ever met who was interested in and had ever sculpted. And then suddenly you're in a room with a bunch of other people who had spent as much time sculpting as you had, and they had all their projects and they were showing them to you and they were interested in your projects. It would be like life-changing. That's what it's like. It's crazy.
That's such a good way of putting it, actually. I completely agree. I even think about, like, when I was a kid, I remember, like, I played so much Zelda and I was obsessed with Zelda, and I thought I was like the only one into Zelda, and I was like, man, no one likes Zelda. The moment I would meet another person in my school who also played like every Zelda game, I'm like, what? This is mind-blowing. This is insane. Like, what do you want to talk about first? Like, it's just... So I agree.
But yeah, no, this experience of like, it was one of the most magical things about tricking is the sorts of people, because it is as niche as it is, the sorts of people that you come into, you don't get this experience anywhere else. The amount of like, oh my gosh, where have you all been waiting all my life? Like that, it's hard to find any other area of your life that will do this for you as much as tricking will do this for you.
Yeah.
Doing the same thing that I love. That makes me happy, and that is why I feel like being a tricker will never end, because the more we keep looking at each other, the more we fall in love with it. The more we fall in love with it.
Last couple points.
Yep. I couldn't have described what tricking means to me better than how Mike just said it before. Like, seriously, that just resonated with me. I just had to say that. And also, to the point where the Trick Strong logo is what you described. Like, the fire is the passion we all have. And there's an Enzo, which is a Japanese calligraphy sign that represents community and strength and being in the moment, because when you do the Enzo sign, you're doing it with one stroke. So it's never gonna be perfect. and it represents a single moment in time. And basically what I'm trying to say is that mindset of the passion that we have spreads out to our community, and it spreads out beyond the physical aspects of tricking. And that is the most beautiful thing to me, and that's what I've gotten from tricking, and I'll continue to get it until I'm not alive anymore. It's just like that mindset, and I just wanted to highlight that, and I'm gonna save that video, and because you articulated it perfectly, so thank you.
Adding to that thought, you can't really get rid of a sport that's had such an impact in your life. So like a lot of these people like Scarlett and Carla and Will and like Trish and Neil, like we all grew up together. I met Will my first day of middle school. Like if he wasn't part of my life, I don't know like who I would be. So you go to these events, like there was a point in my life, like Trish and I, we go to visit you. We go like to a gathering like once a month. So you make like all these friends, you make all these, you just create opportunities together, and then like all my best friends in tricking are doing something in tricking. So Trick Strong, Trick Dynamics, we're doing Euphoria together. Everybody has their own brand, everybody has something that they can contribute, and you look around at like the people that you're hanging out with, and if they help you become the person that you are. So I can't leave tricking, I just physically can't, and like all my friends are doing it. Who would I be if I like, hey guys, have fun at the session? Like, no, like this is part of my life. And like the more gatherings that you guys go to, and like the more you involve yourself in the sport, you can't leave. You can't leave.
You're trapped. You're stuck.
It's true.
There's no escape.
I was gonna say it sounds a lot like Stockholm syndrome. Like
It kind of sounds like we're a cult, like we won't let you leave. Yeah. But it's the thing. It's like we don't have to stop you. Like you will stop you. The cult is in you.
I had a couple other questions, but honestly, I feel like this is a really, really solid point to end on. We're also at time. If anybody has anything that they want to respond to what, yeah.
Okay, I'm Carla. Hi.
Oh, Carla.
Ex-Euphoria member, also started training in 2000 something. I was in like 5th grade. I don't trick anymore at all, really, because I hurt my back. So I think I just, cool.
Yeah, that's one of those injuries.
Reiterate what they've all
Totally
been saying. Like,
understandable.
I don't trick. I'll do a Gumby every once in a while, but I don't trick. It doesn't feel good on my body. I just turned 30. Like, you will be there one day too, maybe. Probably not. But I cannot leave. My husband is David Fisher. We are together because of tricking. My sister is Kojo's wife. Like, my family alone is a tricking army. But like, those are my best friends. Like, what you all need to do in your communities, especially if you're newer into tricking, is just really nurture your home community. Like, we are here because we were lucky to be born into the DMV community. Imagine that. That's so crazy. We were just there, but you guys can do that in your own areas, and like have, like Jaime was saying, like Furious Force, TDX, like you have to create your crew, and if you already have it, that's so great, but just like grow it there, and then this will continue to grow because you bring your crew, and like, yeah, it's pretty cool. So I don't know. Okay, bye.
All right, and with that, we will close out the tricking.
Cool.
All right, there we go.
All right. Well, overall, really cool talk. Honestly, I wish I was there so I could have asked some questions, or so I could have, I don't know. It would have been
dunked on some people, roasted them right to the face. Yeah.
Get them in a
cool
logical
that
trap.
Vertigo had a panel like this at all. Like, you know, like time dedicated to the gathering is so precious. So to have it devoted to a time where, you know, an older legacy can, you know, impart some wisdom is pretty dope.
On tricking, to a group of youngins.
Rarely in the past have dedicated time to, funnily enough, talking about tricks. Like at gatherings, like obviously we would talk about it within our circles, but besides seminars, there really wasn't formatted time to talk about tricks.
No, there's no shared no place where we can all come to a consensus on certain aspects of information. Like there is at most like a small clique discussion.
Yeah.
And I think we're starting to see that too, like develop more at gatherings.
Yeah.
Like PDX is doing it now, Vertigo as well.
I've been enjoying it. Yeah, PDX. I mean, that was a blast. Just like talking for hours. I mean, that's all gatherings are to me anymore, to be honest. Because, I mean, my tricks don't hold up. So the only thing I can do is yap, and that's the other thing I'm good at.
Yep.
So, but yeah, overall, great views overall. Obviously, we had some rebuttals, but I, for the most part, agree with almost everyone.
Nothing I think that was like completely orthogonal to what they said. We would just maybe say like, maybe that's not exactly. Like I think the one that comes to mind is like when Kojo said like this would solve problems, this or it would just. I think he said something stronger. He said this would just make things better, and you took issue with that. You're like, okay, it wouldn't just do that, and it's like, okay, yeah, that's pretty. Like it would definitely. There are things it would make better. Yeah. But it wouldn't just make things better. Like
I agree. I agree with the vibe of what he's saying. I just wanted to nick that.
Yeah, he was being hyper. Exactly, and he was being hyper. That's the thing. Like if we were to put him on the spot and be like, Kojo, defend yourself. Yeah. He would just say that he was being hyperbolic, and it's like, well, yeah, sure, that's totally reasonable in a situation like that.
But yeah, great fun. But yeah, definitely check out Vertigo. Check out our Patreon down the link below as well if you'd like us to do some more of this long form content. And yeah, let us know your thoughts on, I guess, this whole discussion. So catch you guys later.